where there has been enforced silence on the past, they can be highly unsettling for the public and lead to conflict between different interpretations of what happened. Charkin's confessions have also given rise to conflicting interpretations. They have been reinterpreted and reappropriated by the audiences in different ways. However, unlike cases like Argentina, his confessions have not scandalized the country and didn't arouse a strong public response. The only strong reaction, as I said, came from human rights groups. So before making general arguments about the limitations of knowing the truth in contributing to reconciliation, I will first discuss the specific reasons in the Turkish context. So when talking about the groups with the state who have taken these decisions and committed unlawful acts, Charkin made references to deep state. So the first thing which prevented a full account of the past is this discourse on deep state, which is basically certain power groups within the state who have committed unlawful acts in collaboration with groups within military, police, bureaucracy, mafia and others. Deep state in Turkey acts with full impunity. Previously, there were other concepts like gladio which were used. But references to deep state in Turkey often lead to conspiracy theories and confusion and make the whole situation incomprehensible. As Zizek states, the evocation of the complexity of circumstances serves to deliver us from the responsibility to act. So the second reason is entrenched impunity in cases of human rights violations in Turkey. So there is a lack of trust in the state's willingness to prosecute these people involved in atrocities. And also, Charkin's confessions included accusations to specific individuals rather than the main structure giving rise to these kind of atrocities. So it was mostly individualized, and he mentioned that it was like a few rotten apples in the army or the gendarmerie who were committing these kind of acts. And the other thing he used in his confessions was this discourse on counter-terrorism, which served to legitimize these operations. In addition to these reactions, some state officials denied Charkin's confessions as lies of a former police officer who is insane or who is after material interests. So, arguments about deep state and the culture of impunity in Turkey have led to apathy and cynicism in Turkey in the search for justice on past atrocities. Many believe that neither the confessors nor others will be prosecuted and nothing will happen. Cynicism is also visible in the interpretations which argue that the confessions are insincere. I'm using all these factors discussed above have led to a public denial of the truth about past atrocities. Here I'm using the term denial as Stanley Cohen describes. That is, the states of denial are processes whereby atrocities are neutralized, normalized, legitimized, or rendered invisible. I'll finish after this bit. Apart from the Turkish context, if I make some general theoretical arguments, regardless of whether they tell the truth about the past or not, confessions can work both ways. They can reinforce the official narratives or they can challenge them. Even if they cause an initial shock, there is a risk of them being articulated by the official discourse. As Herbert Marcuse states in One-Dimensional Man, different modes of protest, which might seem contradictory, can be quickly digested by the status quo as part of his healthy diet. So this is what happened in the case of leaked information about past atrocities as well. As I tried to show above, Charkin's confessions have been appropriated and articulated in different ways by the audiences. The content of the confessions have not been discussed, but rather they were recontextualized and reinterpreted by the public. So to understand how these mechanisms of appropriation work, we can look into how ideology functions. Here I use the term ideology not as false consciousness, but rather as a set of explicit and implicit ethico-political positions we take, which predetermine our perception of facts and how we organize facts into a consistent narrative. So an ideology is not necessarily false, it can be true, but what matters is how it relates to relations of domination. Maybe I can give the example of WikiLeaks, which is quite useful. WikiLeaks has published Iraq and Afghanistan war logs, which included videos of civilians being bombed. Such allegations have been raised before the leaking of these videos, however they remained as abstract knowledge. What WikiLeaks made was making this knowledge undeniable and concrete. However, despite that, it didn't really change the way the public I mean, okay, it did change, of course, but it didn't make like substantial change, and people still continue to take part in mechanisms maintaining the status quo. So, human rights groups in general often assume that if only people knew, they would act. In this paper, I tried to show that even if the full account of past atrocities is presented to the public through confessions or leaks, this might not lead to a public action. And this is mainly dependent on how such facts are interpreted and articulated. As Cohen states, despite all the knowledge about the past, the same institutions of repression reproduce themselves in a different social order. So my suggestion in relation to this is, for the truth to contribute to reconciliation, I think first of all, it needs to be contextualized and politicized by the groups campaigning for justice in order to challenge the attempts to